What's up, dads? Your boy Big Dave Martell back with another episode of Culture Dads, Age of Sword and Cassette. What's up, Mike? How we doing?
I'm doing very well, Dave. Yeah, how about yourself? You getting over your cold these days?
Yeah, I was dry. It was one of those things where you have sore throat and you're just kind of hazy and your head's pounding. You just feel miserable. It was just one of those lingering season change colds that just doesn't seem to go away. And I'm starting to come back. I'm like 80. I got it. I'm still a little hazy. Still feel a little tired and stuff. But hey, I'm feeling good. I'm on the
nice
the victory side now.
Yeah, it always feels good when you're kind of on the up and up, you know what I mean, or on the come up. It's you told me the other week that you were feeling like absolute shit when you did your interview on Survive the Jive Talk. I listened to that the other day. Man, you were killing it. You didn't sound bad at all. Like not nearly at all. It was amazing. And actually that story that you told at the very end about Grandpa Dave, that was fucking weird. Weird shit, bro.
Yeah, that was folks should go check that. So when that happened, well, first of all, man, that was like the first day that I was like really starting to feel sick. And I was like, I can't skip. We already postponed our show like 5 times. We were supposed to do that interview in like the winter time. And I was like, I can't skip again. I got to get on with Jive. You can't, that's like going on with Johnny Carson or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I was like, I got to do it. So I faked it. And I think I did pretty good for feeling pretty lousy. But
yeah, you fucking smashed it, bro. It was really good. Yeah, and it's exciting about Gods of Pagana. That is one of my all-time favorite books. Like not just even from, the early 20th century or fantasy or whatever. It's like an all-time favorite, like just period. You know what I mean? I remember reading that ages ago. Like when I first got my Kindle, it's kind of a funny story. When I first got it, the wife asked me for Christmas one year, a week or two, well, maybe a month before Christmas, she was like, so what do you think about the Kindle? And I'm like, oh, fuck that shit. I fucking, I don't want anything to do with that. I just like paperbacks, man. I like the smell of the book. I like the way the pages smell. You know what I mean? I like holding it in my hand. I like having a physical thing. I like the way that when I've read it, it's got like, a little bit of like thumbprint on it. It just kind of feels like I just like the physical thing. And she's like, well, you ain't going to like your fucking Christmas present this year then. I'm like, oh shit. Oops. Stuck my foot in my mouth there. But then I got the Kindle and I just like within 5 minutes, I had like just raced through like Amazon and downloaded like 100 books. And I'm like, this is the best shit ever. I was just like, this is amazing. And I still love it. I actually don't use the Kindle anymore because I got my phone basically, but I still love ebooks. I still love, getting them on. I still love physical books. I got a huge collection, but one of the first ones I downloaded was Lord Dunsany's Gods of Pagana. That was one of the very first ones that I downloaded on the Kindle. And I remember reading that and just being absolutely enraptured with it. Just like, he's obviously a forerunner to Lovecraft and Tolkien creating his own world, this weird, bizarre fantasy world of like alternate pantheon of gods and everything, like the sign of Mung and everything like that. Yep. It's crazy, dude. It's very psychedelic and weird. And I would recommend to anybody to pick this up. I've seen what the Bizarchives cover art looks like. It looks amazing. This is going to be a big release, man. You guys are just absolutely knocking it out of the park these days.
Yeah, thanks, Bob. Yeah, Gods of Pagan. I'll tell you what led up to it. I was talking to a friend who's a big Tolkien guy, and I was like, "Yeah, man, I like this that he like sort of borrowed from Dunsany." He goes, "Who's Dunsany?" And I was like, "No way." I thought, he's like proto. He was like before Tolkien. He's like, "Oh, I never heard of that." Blah. And I was like, "Shit." And I go and I hit up a couple of my other buddies that I know are like Tolkien fanatics, and I was like, "Yo, you ever get into Dunsany?" And every single one of them was like, "Who's that?" I was like, this can't stand. So I was like, I put the nose to the grindstone, and I decided we're gonna start doing some Dunsany books because they're just too good, dude. Gods of Pagana is like, that had to have blown people's minds when that came out. You know what I mean? It was like this. It's so interesting because it's like kind of the source culture of where it's supposed to come from is unknowable. It's like this weird blend of many cultures. It's like this almost like proto primordial culture that existed in this time before time. The gods all have these really interesting names, and it reads like mythic poetry almost. So it's like, it's like, what was the sayings of Shishta Hotep and the prophecies of Mung, and like, it's just like all of these cool like deity names, and the story goes on and on. It's like they're like, was that the cosmogenesis? It's like the beginning of time, and then it goes on and on and on and on and on till like the end. It's like an eschatology or something. I don't know. It's really a fantastic book.
Yeah, it's really cool. And actually, like, very few people have heard of it that I've talked to. It's kind of renowned, but not very well known somehow. It's almost like that. What's the band that they say that about? The Velvet Underground, where, only 50 people bought their album, but all 50 people ended up starting like legendary bands. It's kind of like that with this book. Very influential on a lot of writers that everybody knows. So that's cool. When it comes out in print, I'll definitely pick up a copy of that. Oh, and also I've got the Weird Works of Dave Martell on my desk. I just finished proofreading one of the books, probably the next book or maybe the one after, that's going to come out in Imperium. It's a very good book to I'll announce it here. It's called The Indo-European Household, by William Edward Hearn, who was like a jurist in the late 19th century. And what it is, basically, this book picks up on it picks up where Ancient City left off, basically. So this book, Ancient City needs no introduction. What this guy does is he basically takes the Indo-European ancestor cult, and he takes that, and it's like the first book or two of Ancient City fleshes out the archaic sort of structure of the household, what it looks like, the pater familias, the house father, the domestic cult, the hearth, all of this stuff. And what this book does, that we're going to be putting out, it fleshes all that out in great, great detail. A lot of what people have been asking me to do since the Ancient City dropped, since shortly after the Ancient City dropped, is to put out something that explains how the hearth cult works, how to do it, like a practical guide. And just basically, people are hungry. They're hungry for more information about this like archaic Indo-European religion. And that's exactly what this book is going to provide. And it's very interesting because it also explains how the clan structure, the sort of originary clan structure of the Indo-Europeans, eventually, over a very slow period, over a slow process, it gives way to the state, and how the state is vastly different than the clan, and in some ways opposed to it. I'm going to be the one writing the introduction. I did a very close reading of this. I've read it before, but I did a very close reading of it. It's taken me ages. And there's a lot of Greek and Latin to translate. So this is going to be a big, like, when this book comes out, it's going to be a real labor of love. I'm I'm done with that now, though. I've done my close reading, and I've got a few books on the desk to read, just for pleasure, and that includes The Weird Works of Dave Martell. So that's going to be probably the next one I dive into. Yeah, lots of good stuff coming out. But anyway, this episode that we got today, Dave and I thought that what we might talk about was a little bit of our journeys into heathenry, what that kind of looks like, because obviously, being part of the nationalist scene, generally right-wing, means that you're probably a religious guy and probably a conservative guy, at least in some sense. And what that means for the vast majority of people in the West is Christianity. But this is not the case for Dave and I. Something has led us down a different path. And, we get lots of questions about our pagan identity. How did you get into it? That sort of thing. So I figured that this would be a good outlet because, of course, Culture Dads is a folkish podcast. This would be a good outlet for us to really tell our own individual stories in a fair bit of detail. So, yeah, Dave, how did you? What were the sort of beginnings for you? How did you? What was the earliest kind of beginning of your journey?
Oh, well, I'm going to try to keep as succinctly as possible. So the way that I describe it is I feel that I've always been a pagan. You know what I mean? I have felt this way since as long as I can remember. When I was very young, I've always been drawn to mythopoetic aesthetics. I've always been fascinated with the polytheism of the ancient world. I loved a lot of stories that had mythopoetic themes. Obviously, probably one of the biggest influences on me and having a folkish worldview was when I was very, very little. My grandfather read to me The Hobbit. The Hobbit was actually a very, I guess you could say, a very formative thing for me, right? My grandfather on my mom's side, he came from Italy when he was very little. My father is Pennsylvania Dutch, he's German, and my mom is Italian. So my grandfather, his family came from Calabria, Italy, and when he first came here, he didn't speak English, right? He was a little kid, didn't speak English. And back then schools weren't as good as they are now, right? It took him a while to get into school and learn English. And by the time he was, a teenager or whatever, he spoke fluent English. And eventually he sort of forgot how to speak Italian in his older years because he just stopped speaking it. I mean, he could still speak it, but not very well. You know what I mean? But the first book that he read on his own in English, and now he was a little older. I guess he was probably approaching teenage years by the time he was able to read fluently in English, was The Hobbit. And he loved it. He adored it. My grandfather, even though he was very, very, if you met him, that he was the most, paisan you can imagine, right? He loved his pasta and his Italian food. He went to church 2-3 times a week, mass twice a week. He was, big. He's a real fucking greaseball. Hey, what can you say? So, but he was also a guy that really loved imaginative things. He loved poetry. He loved art. He was obsessed with aesthetics. He was actually a fairly decent painter and artist himself, and he played a little guitar and could sing. The whole side of my mom's family were all musicians. When they first came to America, how they made money was they were sort of like this, I guess like a Italian. What was that show with the family that all sang together? They sang songs, and I can't remember, but Partridge Family or some shit. I don't know, that's kind of what they did. So music and art and everything was just a big deal to them, right? They danced a tarantella at weddings. They all sang all their songs. They were into it, right? They were very artsy, talented people. All of my great aunts were actually very beautiful young ladies, and they were all very gifted wedding singers. So they all married rich guys. Like they all caught the eye of rich guys, and they all got married and moved up in the world. But your blessings to them. But anyway, long story short, The Hobbit was a big deal for me. And this idea, this love of magic and imagination, and my grandfather was also a very superstitious man. He was the kind of guy who's very old-timey Catholic. He would make the sign of the cross when he would enter in certain doorways. He would not want to drive past houses or things that he thought were cursed. He was like, he would mirrors that were like up in the attic. He would cover them with a cloth because he thought that demons could look through them. He was, he was like really a superstitious guy. So this, like, he sort of had a magical worldview in his own way. So that old world magical worldview kind of got transferred to me with the Germanic aesthetics of The Hobbit. So that became kind of like the lens in which I saw the world. And I went on to fall in love with books that are about mythologies and obviously the Roman and Greek stuff, and the Norse and various Germanic tribes, and I just fell in love with it. And then growing up, my mother was not as religious as my grandfather. My mother was what do they call them? Cafeteria Catholics. Like, she's very, very half-assed, and went to church maybe once a year for Easter or something like that. And so she was not like that. And my father is like an atheist almost. He's like a complete skeptical, secular kind of guy. So I didn't have like a very favorable view of religion growing up. I saw both of my grandfathers were very, very pious men. Even though they were very different, and when we have a big family gathering, they would kind of sit in the same room and just like kind of sit in silence, and they were cordial and they were nice to each other. But you have one Pennsylvania German hardcore Church of the Brethren Protestant, and you have this old world Italian Catholic. They didn't have a lot in common, right? I growing up, I sort of felt like I was like a biracial or something.
Yeah.
So, but either way, I saw both of these men, and they were both very active in their churches, very pious men, very into their religion. And I wanted to be like Grandpa and Pop, and I wanted to feel God, and I wanted to feel religious, and I wanted to do this stuff. And I got no support from my parents. My dad and my mom were just like, they did
go
not
do your thing.
Yeah, they did not instill in me confidence in religion. And then later on, I went to various, growing up in Christian America, I've been to church before, right? Multiple times. And there was one time I remember, I'm kind of bouncing all over the place here, but there was one time I remember, I can't remember why I was there, but I was at one of those, I don't know what kind of denomination it was, but it was like a low church Protestant place where they sing and dance and do all their Jesus songs and stuff like that. And I remember sitting there and I'm like watching it, and I just thought it was so corny and gay. And they did the thing where they would touch each other in the head and do the fucking. And I'm like, these guys are fucking. This is so. I'm embarrassed being here. And there's this guy in front of me, this like cornball guy with his the typical like cornball dad button up short sleeve shirt with the big glasses and the shirt tucked into his jean shorts, and he turns around, he's like, he puts his hand on my shoulder, and he's like all big in the eyes. He goes, "Can you feel that? Can you feel that?" I like look at him, I was like, what are you talking about? And he just like turned around and got back into his fucking thing. And I was like, I feel nothing. I think these people are all fucking fake. So as a little kid, I also have memories of seeing various land spirits, and it could have been an active imagination, but in my memories, when I recall, I remember sitting like in the yard of my house and looking out into the field and seeing these spirits or entities or fey creatures or whatever they are. So I always had a belief in that because I remember seeing them. Now, it could have been my imagination. I don't think it is, but it could have been, I guess. Later on, I get a little bit older and I like start seriously thinking about becoming, religious, and I start looking into Germanic religion. Because I've just always been drawn to it. You know what I mean? It called me. And I didn't choose paganism; it chose me. Right? That's how I describe it. So very early on, I did very simple kind of little rituals or whatever, like made little offerings. And I had some friends that were really into it too. I had a friend named Brad, and we would do sacrifices to Odin. Like it would dump in, I guess, looking back, it wasn't too far. We completely made it up, and I think we sort of learned it from watching the 13th Warrior and shit like that. So it was just the best that we had. I didn't know heathenry was a thing. I didn't know True. I thought that me and him were the only people in the entire world that that believed this, right? So we start making libations to Odin and dumping it into the fire and saying prayers and just doing the best that we could to try to be pagans. And I kind of got into it for a while. And then something happened that really solidified this to me, right? I was 17 years old. I had my little bro cult of budding Odinists. And the first time I actually legitimately prayed, it was, I can't remember what year, I was 16 or 17, right? And the biggest tornado ever to land in the state of Pennsylvania touched down in the field behind my house. It was I can't remember. I think it was an F4. It was humongous.
Wow.
Now, for you guys down there in Tornado Alley, this is like a nothing burger to you, but to me, a guy that grew up in the Northeast in the mountains and shit, we don't see tornadoes. It was apocalyptic. I still have nightmares about it. It was traumatized. This big, just absolutely unfathomable black pillar of wind just comes down from the sky, a green, black, purple sky. There's a weird smell in the air. It's fucking apocalyptic, and it's so loud. This tornado was so loud, it sounds like a freight train in front of your face. So we all the time, everywhere you go, there's always tornado warning, tornado watch, tornado warning. We get those all the time. We never take them seriously. You know what I mean? And this time, it happened. And I remember the wind starts really picking up. And I was like, "Oh, guys, we should get some water and some stuff down into the basement, some blankets and stuff down into the basement." And it starts going, it starts getting worse. And then the sky goes black. And it was like, "Oh shit!" I was like, "Everybody get down!" Blah blah blah. And I remember everybody gets down in the basement, and we had 3 dogs. And one of our dogs was a big cat. He was a Springer Spaniel. His name was Oda, and he was a fucking scaredy cat, right? He got so scared that he ran up and hid under my bed in my room, which was the first room close to the field. You could look out my window and see the field. So I run back up to get my dog, to save my dog, and I remember I run up. And a fucking half of a tree lands in front of the window. I'm sorry, it's getting me worked up. In front of the window outside of my room. And I remember I dig my dog out, and I look outside, and this black pillar that is bigger than my house is literally at the end of my yard. It is so loud, you can't even think. And I turned and I yelled, "Tornado." And I remember, you ever have one of those dreams where no matter how hard you scream, nothing comes out of your mouth?
Yeah.
That's what it was. And I remember I gripped my dog and I held my dog and I prayed to the Thunderer to save my family. And I ran with my eyes closed down the hallway and down into the basement. And we made it there. Well, half hour passes and it finally quiets down. I come out and I look around my house is completely intact. Some shingles got ripped off. We had some screwed up trees. A branch landed on my mom's car, like with minimal damage. By the way, we had minimal damage. It was almost just like a bad storm. The entirety of the rest of the neighborhood was completely annihilated.
Wow!
I remember it was shocking, and I was like, I get out of the house. Me and my brother. My little brother, we run up the hill. At the top of the hill, there was this absolutely massive oak tree. We're talking like if you like hold your arms out, like it would take like 2-3 guys to put their arms around this tree. Huge old oak tree. This tornado was so strong, it ripped it out by its roots, snapped it in half, and threw it probably 800 feet into the middle of the field. This gigantic oak tree. We crest over the hill. It was like to see this amount of devastation was shocking. Power lines were like sparking. Everything was just completely flattened. The entirety of this entire development, the neighborhood was obliterated. It was like a sea of rubble, cars flipped upside down. There was dead animals, like dead dogs and shit. Like people were crying. It was nuts. The tornado jumped over my house, landed at the top of the hill, and proceeded to annihilate the rest of the neighborhood. We were saved.
Wow. That's fucking intense, bro. Yeah, I could not even imagine something like that. That's fucked. Yeah, well, I can understand after that having faith. You know what I mean? That the call had been answered, the prayer had been answered.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say I had something not like that exactly, but there was definitely a situation. I won't give any details because it's way too close to home for me. But there was a situation where I was looking at a loved one dying and prayed to the All-Father, and my prayer was answered as well. So these are the kind of things you can't dislodge someone's belief once they go through something like that. Once they go through something like you did, you know what I mean? Where it's just it's just performative. It's too big. It's too big to dislodge from your heart. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I actually went through it not too long after that. I guess in my 20s was when the Fedora Lord Atheist kind of phase went through. And I got caught up in it, right? Richard Dawkins and Christopher Hitchens, and I became a Fedora for like a few years, right? And I kind of chalked up all my beliefs and everything. Well, that was just a coincidence. That was just natural phenomenon. That was just my whatever. I even came up with like all kind of pseudoscience horse shit that the I fucking love science crowd always cooks up for religious people to apply to myself. And it was really just a reaction against Christianity, right? Yeah. Because when I first started to express that I was a pagan or that I had these beliefs, it was met with sometimes ridicule and other times some pretty nasty. So there's some I did. It wasn't like I was accepted with open arms. You know what I mean? Yeah. It wasn't like it's like, oh wow, you've developed belief or whatever. It was, you believe in like this, or you believe in Marvel comics, which is something that's like if somebody says that to me in real life, I'll punch them in their face. That's a fight immediately if somebody says that to me. Yeah. But just so I was like, I kind of went back inside of myself, and I was like, I guess all religion is horseshit then. You know what I mean? And I was like, you know what? Fuck religion and fuck Christianity is what I developed from that. I really got mad at all of Christianity for their treatment of my belief. I thought that, they would be like, fellow religious believer person, we're glad that you have belief in something. And it was the opposite of that. It was it was probably worse. So I became a reactionary Fedora Lord retard. I got briefly into like Satanism because it was so metal, and all my favorite metal bands were into satanic shit. I have a whole story about that, how cringe and embarrassing that was. But I did that for a little bit, and I remember clear as day, there was one thing that knocked me out of my fedora phase. At this point, I'm like full on fedora, and I'm watching this interview with Bill O'Reilly and Richard Dawkins. And Richard Dawkins makes his usual like douchebag fedora argument about how he's like, well, I'm not technically an atheist. I just believe in one less God than you do. I don't believe in your God. And he names a bunch of deities. He's like, I don't believe in Osiris. I don't believe in Zeus. He goes, I don't believe in Thor. And when he said Thor, I had this like visceral like reaction. And I got mad at him. I was like, how, like, it was like, just, I didn't consciously think this, but it was like, how fucking dare you say that? Like, don't say that name. And it recalled like my feelings of the tornado and everything like that. And I was like, fuck this guy. And it obviously was a couple months. And then I started to get my feelings back a little bit. And I remember starting to research and looking into it. And I found videos from, I went online and looked up, like I Googled like belief in Odin or something like that. And I looked it up, and I found videos from a guy, an older gentleman with white hair and white beard, a white goatee, and he's wearing a blue polo shirt. And he's sitting in front of a fireplace, and his name was Stephen McNallen. And he goes, he opens his video and he goes, what is also true? And that started me on my journey into the community. Shortly after that, I had children. Just around the same time, I became a father, and I haven't looked back ever since. I've been in the community ever since.
Wow. Yeah, that's interesting that you mentioned Stephen McNallen. Actually, my introduction to you through the Bog, I think it was the Bog back then, but I could be wrong, was through the Heel Turn Network. Yeah, back in the day, bro. Yeah, that's a long time ago, isn't it? We won't go into all the heel turn shenanigans and how it ended and everything like that, which I've heard stories about, but it was something very interesting going on there, and I don't know if it was actually, so this was like a set of YouTube channels. It might have been a YouTube channel in and of itself. I think it was actually its own YouTube channel back in the day, where basically every podcast fucking ruled. That's all I knew about it back then. There was lots of stuff. There was stuff from Stephen McNallen. There was Dave Martell. There was, I don't remember everything, but there was a whole bunch of stuff like that. And a lot of it was very heathen oriented. Some of it explicitly and some of it not so much. So that's where I discovered you, basically. And I've always had that association of like Stephen McNallen with what you've been doing. And obviously he is, for guys who don't know who he is, basically he's one of the original practitioners of Asatru, one of the OG trailblazers who really did a lot to revive this, like, as an actual practicable religion in the modern world. So shout outs to Stephen McNallen. But yeah, no, that's really cool, man. It's fascinating to hear people's journey into it. Like you, mine goes back so far that I don't even know. And when you said, that you've always been a heathen, that strikes a very deep chord with me, because I don't know that there's ever been a time when I wasn't, right? And at some stage, kind of pretty late in the game, I just kind of gave myself permission to be that, right? To be what I am. But for me, I mean, where it started, I've told this story before, actually on one of the recent episodes, so I won't go into a lot of detail with it, was I remember as one of my earliest childhood memories, my parents reading this book of myth and legends to me, and it had all kinds of stuff. It had stuff from the Germanic world, Spanish, Greek, Roman, all kinds of stuff. And it was like, pretty over my head at the time. I guessing that I would have been about 5 or 6, something like that, when my parents read it to me. But it's for like, young teenagers or whatever. But I just remember the illustrations. I remember them narrating the stories and being thrown into this world, this like wonderland of like crazy, bizarre creatures and like heroic exploits and all kinds of stuff. And at some stage, childhood memories fade. I just came to believe that I had invented this book and that my parents, it's just like I had sort of, this book had coalesced in my mind out of like a number of different things that my parents read me as a kid. And then at some stage when I was, maybe about 30 years old, my dad actually handed me this book. And I was like, oh my God, no, it's real. It's actually real, this thing. And I have it here. I have it on my shelf. It's a family heirloom. It's going to be handed down through the generations. It's quite a treasure. But this is just to say that my introduction to myths and, traditional European mythology came very, very early. And I was absolutely captured by it. Another thing comes a little bit later. I would have been about 8, 9 years old or something. It's just this is a story my dad loves to tell. It's like his favorite story in the whole world. Is that I was big into hockey as a good Canadian boy and I think it was after a hockey game or like driving to practice or something like that one day. My dad and I would have these conversations, and like your dad, he's like a boomer atheist dad, like doesn't have a shred of belief. That, well, I shouldn't say that actually, because I later had a conversation with him. It's a little more than that, more complicated than that. But anyway, you're definitely not a religious person. But we'd have these like metaphysical conversations. And, I remember one conversation we had where I was like talking to him about the soul and like, the idea that humans have souls and that the soul is something that is like, particular to you. And it's, these souls, like, where do they come from and everything like that. And he asked me a question. He got me to think about it. He's like, if everybody has a soul and the population of the world keeps going up and up and up, where do the souls come from? Kind of thing. And it's, we just have these like conversations like that, right? He was really good about it. He himself, having no belief, didn't want to like, instill some fedora atheism into me. He was just like genuinely, like he just liked to see his son kind of like explore ideas and everything. He was really cool about it. It was awesome. But anyway, on one of these occasions, we had a conversation on the way home, I think from hockey practice or something. And he says, so Mike, what do you want to do with yourself when you grow up? What do you want to be when you grow up? And I guess he was like expecting an answer like, I want to be a fireman, or I want to be a policeman, or I want to be an architect or something like that. But the answer I gave him was that I want to be a druid when I grow up, Dad. This is my career. This is my career ambition. And he just, he just laughed his ass off so hard. He still laughs about it to this day. It's like anytime the word druid comes up, it'll just bring a smile to his face. You know what I mean? This was my like, and I wasn't kidding around either. This was my like, genuine career ambition. I really thought that there was a career path for me in this. And I guess in some ways I wasn't entirely wrong, but so definitely the, shall we say, like traditional Indo-European modes of religious life have always caught me, right? And then getting a little bit older, getting into my teen years and everything like that, I definitely was caught, and I've talked about this on a previous episode as well, caught by nationalist classical music. Because going back to the 19th century with Romanticism, I mean, what Romanticism was, like one of its convolutions, or one of the things that it was actually doing, was it had this cult of the primitive. It was wanting to go back to the roots. Every individual nation, whether it's Russian or Lithuanian or Italian or Belgian, whatever it is, each of these countries suddenly got a kind of got wind of its own Volksgeist, its own folk spirit, its own folk soul. It wanted to go back to the roots. It wanted to go back to its originary, the birth of the nation kind of thing, and really pull from those roots and, you know, forge ahead in what was at the time, and really still is, kind of the paradigm of modernity, the high point of Western civilization. But they all wanted to draw from their, you know, primitive roots. And this was happening in classical music as well, as it was happening in literature and all other artistic modes of expression. And I just remember listening to the one that really sticks out for me is Edvard Grieg, Norwegian composer. Everybody knows some of his music from the Peer Gynt suite. In the Hall of the Mountain King is the really famous one, but there's many others. And I just remember listening to this Peer Gynt suite, which is a kind of like, I believe it's a traditional folk tale that was set to an opera. And it was just, I mean, listening to this music, you really get the sense of being a Norwegian peasant on the mountainside in the deep past, and what it would be like to be in the world of like trolls and giants and all of these things. And just the music itself. I mean, music is notoriously hard to describe the feeling that it gives you. But you listen to this suite, you listen to all of the different movements, Anitra's Dance, Mountain King, Morning Mood, that's another very famous one. It puts you there. I just, in a way that is so immediate that it can't even be described with words. Another very important composer for me was Modest Mussorgsky, whom people know his Night on Bald Mountain. That's the famous one, but he also put out a suite called Pictures at an Exhibition, which is just a series of kind of little vignettes of peasant Russian life. And it's something so absolutely Russian about it. You just get the flavor from these classical music pieces where you just feel the folk soul. You really feel it coming out. You can hear it, and there's something that stirs your soul as well. And I was just taken by that. And just, I love this, like, you know, wanting to go back to the archaic past sort of aspect of it. That really, really caught me very, very deeply on a spiritual level. And then not long after that, or around the same time as that, it would have been, I think, grade 7, we were assigned this book called The Hobbit to read. And reading that was, well, very much like it was for Dave. It was a formative experience for me. I had no idea that this world even existed. It was like somebody had just opened up a book that was a window into a real world. I mean, I had read nothing ever like this before outside of the myths and legends, that created a world that was internally coherent. It had a feel to it. It had a history to it. It had its own languages. I mean, this author Tolkien created he created a world, as his son calls it, the secondary world, that like was something that you can live in. It had, you know, runes. It had its own languages. It had its histories. It has its wars and everything. And I was just taken by it. And of course, there was something about it that was deeper than just a well-constructed fantasy world. There was something that kind of stirred me. And I only later really figured out what it was when I read Beowulf. And, you know, I read this little flimsy paperback version of it, but it was a great translation still. And I remember reading that and saying, oh, okay, this is where Tolkien came from. It was the same world with the same values and the same, rootstock Germanic language and everything like that. And so that kind of set me on the path to, I knew that there was something pagan about Tolkien, but I didn't know quite what. It could have been, Sumerian for all I knew, but it was definitely something that caught me. And then later on in my development, I met this person. I actually spoke about him on the conspiracy theory episode, whom I consider to be really my spiritual mentor. He was this crazy guy that was like, very, very well read in religious literature, especially the Bible and the Torah. And he was also, as I mentioned, into conspiracy theories, but also stuff like the Bible Code, this book that was, I think, probably written about the same time that I met him, that was all about, esoteric, permutations and gematria and sacred geometry and things like that, like the real esoteric, like deep stuff in the history of the West, with like, Hermeticism, alchemy, Kabbalah, things like that. I mean, Kabbalah is obviously Jewish, but he was very much into Kabbalah. Like he would take these words and he would do these permutations with them to explain how like one word elucidates other words, and that they can all be, each letter basically is assigned to a numerical value, and how the numerical values, when this is gematria, where they can, if one word has the same equivalent value as another, then there's some deep connection between them and everything like that. And it just absolutely blew me away. I mean, this was in a phase, late high school, maybe just after graduating, where I was, an atheist, and a pretty committed one, a very hard-headed Darwinist, very materialistic view of the world. And here's this guy that's just absolutely shaking everything to the core. So on his recommendation, I got a copy of the Torah that was a dual language one. I still have it in Hebrew and English. I got a few copies of the Bible, including the King James Version, and I delved very, very deeply into it, and read the Bible cover to cover a couple of times, and tried to take it very, very seriously. And in some ways, this was not the best introduction to it, because it was kind of like getting thrown into the deep end with all the esoteric stuff. In traditional, if you're a Jew, say, and you're getting introduced to the Torah, this is the kind of stuff, like with the permutations and Kabbalah and everything, that you're not allowed to touch, at least until you reach the age of 40, and maybe later than that. So it's kind of a weird introduction for me. But I did read, I read the book, took it very seriously, and tried very hard to be a Christian. But there's something kind of just never took for me. I always found it was very hard to get invested in, excuse me. It was very hard to get invested in a narrative that happened somewhere in the Middle East thousands of years ago. I felt like these stories were not my stories, that there was just something alien about it, something that I was excluded from. So, and I'm not just talking about, the Old Testament. There was something in it that was not mine, and that it was kind of forbidden for me to have. I don't know how to describe it, but there was nothing about any, ancient exploits in Western Europe or in Scandinavia or anything like that. It was all happening in the Middle East. And excuse me. So I just found it very hard to get invested in or whatever. And so after that, I basically considered myself no longer an atheist. I believed in God, or I believed in the divine, or I don't know what I would have called it at that point. But then I got hold of this book that kind of came out of left field for me called The Tao of Pooh, which is it's a book that basically explains Taoist philosophy and Eastern, Chinese philosophy through the lens of Winnie the Pooh, which is kind of it's actually quite a good book. It's kind of like simultaneously loved and hated by Taoists, people in the West especially, because in some ways it overly simplifies the philosophy, but it also does it in a way that's like pretty cool. And I just remember getting this book and being like, wow, this is something very interesting. Maybe I'll check out Taoism. And I got myself a copy of the Tao Te Ching, which is the main text of Taoism. And this for me was a major, major turning point towards becoming genuinely religious. I think Taoism that requires a little bit of explanation for guys, for the audience. I'm sorry I'm taking forever here, but there's been so many twists and turns in this journey. It's yeah. So anyway, what Taoism is, basically it grows out of Chinese folk religion. It is an axial religion. It is basically the axial sort of permutation of Chinese folk religion. And by axial, what I mean is basically transcendental, as opposed to folkish. Anyway, what Taoism is all about is it's all about elucidating the Tao. It's all about explaining the Tao and how it works. And the Tao is something that's very, very hard to explain, because it is the most all-encompassing principle imaginable. It's the broadest, deepest, highest, greatest metaphysical principle that one can imagine. It is what the word means. Tao means the way, and what it is, it's the way things are. But it's also the way, as in a path. There's the same kind of, the synonymy. The words mean the same thing in Chinese as they do in English. Way, both path and manner that things are. It's the way that the world is. But it's also everything. It's the totality. It's reality as a unified whole. And the way that reality manifests itself is necessarily dualistic. It manifests itself as a play of opposites, as polar opposites. And now I don't want to go too far into this because, for time constraint purposes, but there is at least one chapter of the Tao Te Ching I want to read. It's very short here. And it will, I think, resonate a lot with anybody who is interested in differential ontology. So this is chapter 2 from the Tao Te Ching. Recognize beauty and ugliness is born. Recognize good and evil is born. Is and isn't produce each other. Hard depends on easy. Long is tested by short. High is determined by low. Sound is harmonized by voice. After is followed by before. Therefore, the sage is devoted to non-action, moves without teaching, creates 10,000 things without instruction, lives but does not own, acts but does not presume, accomplishes without taking credit. When no credit is taken, accomplishment endures. So this passage really actually sums up a lot of what Taoism is about. First of all, it's about differential ontology. And this is where you get the yin-yang symbol, right? The one that everybody knows. It's the two fishes that are kind of eating each other's tail, and each one has an eye, and the eye is like the opposite like color. What it's basically saying is that to have anything, you necessarily need to have its opposite. You can't have anything without what it's not. And this is really where I picked up on the idea of differential ontology in the first place. Now, this is something that Dave and I have talked about in the past. It's a little bit too much to go into right now, but basically it is a differential ontology is sort of the aboriginal ontology of the Indo-Europeans, and many others, the Egyptians had it as well. And basically what it is it's a radically non-monist flux and like process metaphysics kind of thing. It's a metaphysics of change. It's not a metaphysics of stasis or unity or anything like that. So this really kind of hit me hard and started me sort of like looking at reality and these and or terms kind of thing. And also, when it says that the sage is, he carves without disfiguring, or he's, basically one of the other concepts of Taoism that's really important is this thing called Wu Wei, or non-doing, or doing without doing. And it's actually, this kind of led me into, of all things, libertarianism, because what non-doing is it's the idea that the best way to do things is to just not try to do them without doing, kind of thing. So, for example, we talked about hockey before. A great hockey player is not thinking about, all of the way that the puck is bouncing off the boards and angles and like where everyone is or whatever. He's just kind of in the moment. He's just kind of like letting things happen and sort of using his intuition to guide him, sort of thing. He's doing, but he's doing without really trying or whatever. Another example would be sort of like, somebody who's playing a guitar solo and is really in the moment and improvising and everything like that. This, he's not thinking about things like modes and scales and, intervals and everything like that. He's just doing it, right? Doing without doing. It's a very spontaneous sort of like way of living. And it's very close to some of the Greeks, like Heraclitus and things like that. There's a lot that could be said about this passage. There's many, many other passages that are worth looking at, but and this also led me, because like the Tao Te Ching is founded on an even older text, which is really sort of the core text of like Chinese folk religion, which is called the I Ching or the Yi Ching. And what this is, it's actually a divination manual, and it's if you've ever looked at the Korean flag, you see that there's these like three sets of like three lines, and some of them are broken and some of them are whole or whatever, all around the sun, the red sun. And what these three like tripartite figures are, they're actually trigrams from the I Ching. So what a person who is doing this divination would do is they would cast, well, originally it would be like yarrow stalks, but then later it came to be like coins. And the way that the coins land would basically generate three lines that were either broken or unbroken. And the broken or unbroken lines, the three of them put together, each one would basically represent like an element. So like one of them would be like heaven, another one would be earth, another would be like mountain, another one would be wind, and so on and so forth. Each of these elements represents some sort of like abstract principle. Like heaven represents activity, earth represents receptivity, mountain represents stability, wind represents change, and things like that. And it's a very, very ancient form of divination. Again, it's all based on like broken, unbroken. It's based on this like yes, no, very hard dualistic kind of worldview. This divination manual reaches back into the very, very deep past, into like 1000 BC, into the pre-axial period and everything like that. It's a very, very deep text. We don't really have a lot of, we can't really go into it. But I actually used to practice it. I used to use the I Ching to actually practice divination. And without going into a lot of detail about this, believe me, man, it fucking works.
Really?
Like, oh my God. It was just unbelievably prescient in being able to sort of give me guidance and lead me towards like where I needed to go in my life and everything. It was like having the best like advice that you could ever get kind of thing. But again, there was something kind of like, it just felt a little bit inauthentic because it's not mine, right? And here I am, I'm like this white guy that's like, you know, doing this like ancient Chinese form of divination and everything. And it really worked, man. But it still wasn't for me. You know what I mean? And throughout all of this, through like all of these years of searching, I knew that there was something there. I knew that there was a kind of like, I've described it before as a kind of dark matter. I knew that there was something that was not about dogma, and I'm not saying like, you know, anti-dogmatic, like don't tell me what to do kind of thing. That's never what it was about. It just wasn't about. It wasn't about a principle. It was about a practice, like divination, for example. It was about ritual. It was about something that was very, very concrete, and it was like right before dogma. It was, you know, the close and the familiar above the high and the remote. It was the concrete before the abstract, and this kind of thing. I just knew that was everything good and right and true in the world. I knew that was the answer, but I had never ever found any sort of like religious paradigm that really set that out, you know. And I had investigated Hinduism, I had investigated Taoism and Buddhism and Christianity and Judaism and all Islam, all of this stuff. Never had really quite found what I was looking for. And then one day, this was like, we're getting close to me starting Imperium Press here. One day I was sitting at work, and I at the time I was working, I basically was running a shop of like, I worked at a brick manufacturing company. I was like running one of their shops by myself. You know, I was the guy that was like, you know, selling the bricks and like, you know, stacking things on a forklift and doing all kinds of stuff. I was the one dude there. And one day the power went off. And I had nothing to do because it was, you know, a slow day. Nobody was really coming in. And, you know, normally I'd be on the computer doing work and stuff, but like couldn't do that. So I was just like sitting there, and I pulled up my phone. And I was like, okay, well, what am I going to do? I guess I've got this PDF on my phone. And I started, and I was like, okay, well, I'll read this book. I've been meaning to read it for a while. It's been sitting on my phone for a while. I'll read it. And it was this book called The Ancient City. And well, by the time the power came back on a few hours later, I knew that I was on a different path. I knew that there was something had changed for me. Something big had changed for me. Reading this book and reading the religious paradigm, discovering this ancient Indo-European religious paradigm that I had no idea existed up until this point, something in it absolutely spoke to me and told me in no uncertain terms that this is what you've been looking for. And now, I mean, it's like this was still kind of below the surface, but I knew in my gut that I had found something. This was the dark matter that I'd been looking for. It was orthopraxic, not orthodox. It was all about what's familiar. It was nationalistic. It was about blood and soil. It was about all these things that I had been looking for. And I think the rest of my religious journey is something that I've talked about before, so I won't really go into it. Basically, I am still working out the implications of that turn of reading that book up to the present day. So this is what has kind of led me to where I am. I'm sorry that was like a super, super long novel, Dave. But yeah, that's my story, basically. That's my journey.
Wow. That's yeah, that's pretty interesting. You know, it's really fascinating hearing like kind of like the winding I guess string of events that occurs like leads you to the like because it's like it's your journey was a little bit more of like an intellectual one.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Definitely.
Like you absolutely you described you had some spiritual things in there too, but it was like a quest of intellect, right? That's interesting.
Yeah, and what's kind of ironic about it, you're right. It was kind of like an intellectual quest. It's a quest of understanding. You know, I always felt like I was trying to get the key to explain reality. And what I ended up concluding was that religions are not fundamentally explaining anything. It's not an immature science. It's not about here's what the world is and here's the sort of key to understanding it. The conclusion I came to was that religion is a radically participatory thing that's radically ritualistic, first and foremost. It's not about propositions. It's not about telling you what the world is. It's not about making true false is statements. It's about commands. It's about telling you what to do. It's about telling you, here's a taboo, follow it. Here's a ritual, ceremonial undertaking, do it, kind of thing. They're commands fundamentally. I had been looking in exactly the wrong spot. And now I'm not saying that like propositions have nothing to do with religion. I mean, myths are propositional. They're stories. They tell you what happened. They tell you things that could be true or false. But there's a kind of bedrock underneath all of that. And that this is kind of what I discovered. And I knew just like in my gut, in a way that I could not express, moving towards this like inevitable conclusion where I'm at now, that I knew that there was something I was missing. I knew that there was something like no religion, no text, no scripture really explained the world in the way that I wanted. The Tao Te Ching came pretty close, but even it wasn't it. And when I read The Ancient City, I mean, that's obviously it's a book of history. It tells you true, false things. But what it tells you, basically, it's kind of like Wittgenstein has this metaphor that he uses at the end of the Tractatus where he says, everything that I've just said to you is like this ladder that you climb up. And then when you've climbed up the ladder, once you've got the idea, you throw away the ladder. You don't need the ladder anymore. You've got there. It's a pretty cool metaphor. And I'm not saying, throw away all the myths and legends, nothing like that. But there is something kind of under it all. There's something kind of below it at the foundation that I discovered. And for me, this was a very deeply spiritual experience. And what's more, going on forward, like I say, I've had experiences where just in my life, praying to the ancestors, praying to the gods, and getting a response and having that. Here's a story I can tell because it's not traumatic. The very first time I actually really did the rites, I had been very careful to reconstruct my hearth cult and make it very, very authentic and close. I had modeled it really on the Roman one because that was the one that I could find most information about. And I did it. I went through the steps. I went through the ceremony one night. And at the end of it, you pour out the libations, you invoke the ancestors, you share the mead with them. And then I sat down and I had a drink. I had a drink with my grandfathers, and they were there. They were absolutely there. I could feel it. There was no question in my mind. This is like, you with your, praying to Thor during the tornado. This is something that is absolutely pre-rationally, immediately, like a hand on the hot stove Nothing can argue you out of that. It's a direct experience. I had a direct experience of standing in the presence of my dead ancestors and sharing a meal with them, sharing a drink with them. So there have definitely been some very participatory, religious, spiritual experiences above and beyond the intellectual experience. So yeah, it works, man. I'm telling you, just do it. Even if you do it wrong, just pour out some libations to your, get a picture of your grandpa, put it up on a shelf, do the best you can, and just ask, just say, Grandpa, I'm here, I'm open, are you there? And I would say more likely than not, you will get some sort of an answer.
Oh yeah. That's kind of always been my message, right? Is don't worry about it. Just do. This is like my message that goes across with everything. Now it kind of translates into the realm of writing. Like how do I do that? There's so many guys out there that like spend all their time thinking and world building and doing all this crap. It's like, dude, just sit down and write. Sit down and just write. Like, stop planning. Stop. Analysis paralysis is a disease. Cure yourself of it. And this has been my message, for a long time, and especially in faith. Stop. Find a group that you kind of click with and show up. Don't, I need to do this, I need to do that, blah, blah, blah. Stop thinking, dude. We think too much. Do, right? And this was actually a pretty special experience for me. Actually, it was like, I guess it was last week. So last week, a guy on Telegram reaches out to me. I'd never talked to him before. He sends me this monstrous voice message. It was like, we're talking 25-minute voice message. And I was like, who are you? Like, he's like, I'm sorry for the long voice message. Just if you get a chance, please listen to it. And he goes, and thank you for everything. I was like, what the fuck? Okay, you're welcome, I guess. And I didn't listen to it. And I was like, I don't know. Is this guy some scammer? Is he some weirdo? I don't know. So later on, I finally, I go back and I listen to it. It was 25 minutes. And this guy tells me his story of how he became a heathen. And his journey started when he saw me on Heel Turn Network. He saw me early on when I did my podcast before, so he's familiar with me. And he turns into one of my shows on Heel Turn Network. And during one of my shows, I told him, go find a community. If you don't have a community, start one, is what I said. And he remembered that. So that's what he did. And now he has a kindred in his area that has been going on since 2018. They've been together for years now. And he said that he went through and he read everything. He went and did a deep dive into all my content and learned everything he could, and then found other people and learned everything he could from them. So he's got a legitimate 501c3 organization in his area. He's got 20 families in his group. It's legitimate. And I was like, dude, I'm fucking proud of you, bud. And he just wanted to thank me for doing that. And I was like, that was just so special to me. You know what I mean? That I could have done that. And pretty much what he said was he got together his first couple families it was a family, another guy or whatever. And they were pretty much all just people that tuned into me and tuned into some other people. And my content was kind of the nexus point that he built off of to create a community. And I was just, I don't know, it just felt so good to be a part of that, to be a piece in somebody's thing. And you know what? It's I don't know. It's just special. I love it. I love that I went on this journey. I love that I'm part of this community, and I am it's just so honored that I play some sort of part in a chapter in the saga. whether it's a small one or a big one or whatever, it's really special. Because before I came into this, before I became a heathen, I kind of had the opposite journey as you did, Mike. I was a heathen before I was a nationalist. Before I became a heathen, I was like sort of into like I was always said like kind of more into politics than my friends were, but for the most part, I was a like heavy metal bro. You know, I was a heavy metal bro. I like to drink beer and party and talk to girls, and I played Dungeons and Dragons and video games and like that. You know, I watched football every weekend, and I was just a bro. You know what I mean? But when I got into folk religion, is what like opened up my mind to political and metapolitical ideas. So I wouldn't even be into nationalism if it wasn't for heathenry.
Yeah, it's interesting how we've sort of approached it in kind of different ways, but like ultimately, I think very similar ways as well. One thing that I think is really, really important that you've mentioned is the idea of just getting in there and doing it. This is so important. A lot of people are sort of paralyzed by unbelief, right? And even people who have been convinced, they've been convinced, say, by an argument that God is real, or like this is not a heathen or anything. This applies to Christianity or any religion as well. I mean, especially it applies to what we're doing. You know, I practice a form of the Indo-European ancestor cult. You could imagine I was not raised in this environment, right? When I discovered the religion, it certainly filled a kind of hole in my worldview. But I didn't believe it, right? Not initially. And now, you know, all these years later, if I don't do my daily obsequies and my libations to the ancestors, I feel very, very uneasy. There's something wrong, you know? The only thing that will stop me from doing my daily rites is the absolute worst sickness. I think I missed a day or two when I had COVID. That's about it. It's a very, very strong belief. You know, I do a lot of superstitious things. I've always been kind of superstitious. I do a lot of things now, like, you know, when I pass by my altar that has the icons of my family. When I step out the door, I always step out with my right foot. You know, I'll do a certain sign when I leave the house. My kids and I always say the same thing when we leave the house. It's like, yeah, it's very different than where it started. And how did I get here? Well, I didn't initially believe, but what I did was I just acted like I believed. You know, it's, you know, I hate to say it, it's fake it till you make it kind of thing. And what's very interesting, I'm not the only one to say this. And I'm certainly not, because this is how you develop a religious worldview. There is a very famous passage in Pascal's book called Pensées, where he sets out Pascal's wager. It's a very, very famous argument for God. Without going through the argument, I actually think it's almost ironclad. There's some problems with it, but it's so good that like it has convinced a lot of people. You know, the idea basically being that if God doesn't exist, then you don't lose anything by believing. But if God does exist and you're an atheist, then you suffer eternal damnation. So you might as well just believe. You might as well just, you know, be a Christian or whatever, because you got nothing to lose and everything. You got nothing to lose by being one and everything to lose by not being one, right? That's the argument. So let's just accept that as, you know, true or whatever. It doesn't get you all the way, right? Because you might in your mind feel like that's the truth, but in your heart, maybe you don't believe, right? You're just, you can't force yourself to believe, just even by an ironclad argument. So Pascal says, and this part is always left out in discussions of his wager, but it's the most important part. The way that you believe as a Christian, even if you just only intellectually believe, is you take the holy water, you go to the Mass, you take the Eucharist, and so on and so forth. You go through the motions. You act like you believe. And then over time, a kind of theurgic operation is performed, and you eventually do start to believe. Not everybody, but most people, when they do this, that will make them believe. And let's be honest. I mean, like, why are most people Christians who are Christians? It's not because that they've read Aquinas. It's not because, they've read any like ironclad argument or anything like that. They believe because they've been steeped in a culture that believes. They believe because they've practiced their religion as though they believe. Most children don't know what the fuck to think about all this stuff, like going to church and like what are we doing and like, why are we praying and everything like that. The belief always comes after the practice, right? You go to church, you get baptized, you take communion. I mean, it's fundamentally what we're talking about is LARPing, right? Is it a LARP? Why, yes, it is. It is a LARP, right? And most people, unless you're severely autistic, need something more than reason to have faith, right? And it's something as prosaic as developing a habit, right? If you throw yourself into this worldview, if you throw yourself into the practice of Christianity or paganism, this is what gets you there, right? And I've given this advice to many people, right? Some of them Christians, some of them, folks in the scene that are well known, and they have all come back and told me that it works, right? Belief is a very, very thin rime on top of a heaving ocean of routine, instinct, sentiment, and habit. All of these things come before belief. If you think that belief comes before anything else, this is basically civic nationalism. And it's just not the way that most people work. It's the way that some sort of like very like on the spectrum people do work. Some people can do that, but most people don't hear a syllogism and then fall down and have a religious conversion experience. Most people need something more than that. So it cannot underscore more strongly, Dave, what you said about just do it. Just get in there, act like you believe, do the rites, find other people, start practicing, because the practice comes first. I can't stress that enough.
Yeah. There's a little bit of a criticism in the heathen community about we have some turnover rates. Now it's not as bad as some other this is the way of things, right? Most like work companies have crazy turnover rate. People are just flaky now, right? Anything that requires effort, people don't really want anything to do with. They want things just like given to them. It's just the way that it is. And we had some folks come through my organization, my kindred, that they're like, they came in because they like the aesthetics and they want to be a part of a community, et cetera, et cetera. And they kind of faded off. And, one guy in particular said, well, I don't know if we're going to be coming around anymore. I just, and the big deal was that his wife was like not into it. This is a big problem that we see a lot is we call them, I don't want to say, we are very skeptical of wives and their subversion because modern women are very averse to rules or religion or order or anything. And not all, but there are a lot that are like this. they I don't know. I don't know that's a whole other conversation. Yeah. But when a couple comes in, and we prefer people that have families, we're like, is the wife cool or is she not? Because she's not cool, this guy's not going to stick around. She's going to be in his ear trying to get him away from it and all this kind of stuff. Because she just doesn't want religion in her family. Well, and she probably does the same thing if he tried to go to church. You know what I mean? And it's not like church. We assemble at people's houses. We go to parks. We go to public places. We don't have a temple, so it doesn't really give the impression that we are a I guess I don't know what the word is for it.
Organized religion, maybe?
Yeah, we don't have the establishment and the status that comes with those things.
Right.
So a lot of modern women will be like, oh, yeah, about it. Well, anyway, this one guy, unfortunately, I love her to come around. Blah, blah, blah. I was like, well, you didn't even try. I was like, look, dude, I appreciate you. You're a great guy. You're a nice guy. I got love for you. I love for your family, and I wish you the best. But I knew this was coming because you are not somebody that actually is sincere with the things that you do. So what do you mean I'm not sincere with the things that I was like, he's like, I was like, yeah, you go to work because you have to. I was like, you're probably half sincere with that. You're not sincere with the things that you do. You came in here because you wanted to be a part of something, and you got to be a part of something, and then you couldn't fulfill the other obligations, which is you have to put in effort and try. And he goes, well, I didn't feel it. I didn't feel the gods or anything. I was like, dude, why? Let me put it to you this way. Why would absolutely unfathomably like humongous beings of immortality and agelessness go out of their way to make themselves apparent to fucking you that has no effort? They're just like, oh, please be our friend. Dude, you can't even get the attention of like a famous rock star.
Yeah.
Now imagine a famous rock star that is many millions of times the magnitudes larger. He doesn't give a fuck about you unless you get his attention some way and put in effort. It's like, dude, did you memorize your Gulders? You memorize your prayers? No. Did you read the book I gave you? No. I gave him, I told him to go buy the Imperium Press Havamal, which is a little tiny little booklet. You know what I mean? There's no excuse. It's fucking, how many pages is that booklet? What?
Like 100. Maybe 100
pages. Your monkey ass can't read 100 pages.
And they're not even full pages. They're like, there's like a paragraph on each page.
Like, dog, come on, bro.
Fuck's sake.
You can't put in this amount of effort. You can't do this. You can't memorize the prayers. You can't, like, if you can't do this, then I wish you the best, but you are not of the caliber of sincerity that we need. So it's not like you're breaking up with me, dude. It's what I'm saying is, you could give me this like it's not you, it's me, whatever fucking breakup thing. I'm telling you, you're not fit. Yeah. You know what I mean? And that's so it doesn't matter. I'm not trying to be mean to anybody out there, but if you are not willing to put in the effort to do the ritual, to memorize your Gulders, to do your libations, to be a pious fucking heathen, and put in at least 30% of the effort into your ancestral birthright tradition that your ancestors bestowed upon you in the way that they do. 30 fucking percent. If you don't got 30%, don't even tell me you don't got time. Don't tell me you got time, bro. You go to the gym 3 times a week. You sit down and you fucking go to the movies. You go out fishing. You do this. You do that. You got time for all this other shit. You got time to go to bloat. There's absolutely no fucking excuse. I have never missed bloat in my whole life. Ever missed bloat. Even when I didn't host. And you go, well, I got work. You got work isn't an excuse. Here's
quit.
quit and find a new job, ask off, schedule it. Dude, there's not a lot of workplaces in the United States that if you tell them like a month ahead of time where you have a religious obligation, that they say no. I'm a legitimate ordained fucking priest, dude. I can write the ass a letter. I can write your boss a letter and tell him, look, you got to let this guy off because X, Y, and Z under this law, under our state's code, and under this federal code. And I have all the codes. I know what they are. I know what the laws are. And I'm legit. You just didn't come. You didn't ask off work because your monkey ass is fucking lazy and you don't want to put in the effort. And you want the fucking gods themselves to come down out of the heavens and reveal themselves to you so you can develop belief. Well, I'm sorry. You don't deserve belief. You don't deserve it. That's it. If you don't want to put in the effort. Sorry.
Yeah. There's a kind of weird there's a weird orientation that people have towards religion today, where it's about what can it do for me, like what have you done for me lately, Odin, or whatever. It's like, that's not what worship is about. That's not what religion is about. That's not what ritual and ceremony and all of these things are about. Fundamentally, the basic sort of paradigm of religion, going back to as far as you can trace it back, is the gift cycle. It's what the Romans called do ut des, right? And what that means is I give that you may give, right? It's you start, right? Like you don't wait for the gods to bestow upon you enlightenment and like to descend from a cloud and reveal themselves to you and beg for your worship. You go first, bud, right?
There's no religion in the world. There's no religion in the world that believes that and does that, and the ones that say that are fucking lying. That's it.
Yeah, fake religions, right? It's you are the one in the subservient position. You are the worshiper. Odin is the god. And I mean, I think guys, I'm obviously painting it in a certain way, but and guys don't approach it like that necessarily, but there is kind of the underlying attitude of, well, why don't you reveal yourself to me then? Why don't you make me feel it? It's something that takes work. It's something that requires commitment. Yeah, not enough can be said for this idea. You need to take the first step, whether you're a Muslim or a Hindu or a heathen or whatever. Supplication begins from you, basically, not from the gods, kind of thing. And it's, I mean, some people get lucky. Some people, I feel like I was lucky. Basically, it did not take very long for me to practice my my ancestor cult before I got a response of some kind, anyway. But I approached it like, I was very, very serious about it. I did my homework, and the thing paid off. And I'd been on a very, very long religious journey as well. So I can't speak to other people's experience, but taking it seriously, doing it genuinely with an open heart and really sincerely, it worked for me. It absolutely worked for me. So, maybe it doesn't work for everybody, but I really sincerely believe that you need to take the step. You need to act like you believe before you actually will believe. I mean, for the vast majority of people today, we live in this society that's absolutely steeped in atheism and unbelief and skepticism and corrosion. Like, that's how it works even for a lot of religious people today, right? Like, people who they convert to Catholicism or some form of Protestantism or whatever. They convert from atheism, right? So they have to go through that same step as well. It's not something that's unique to heathenism.
Yeah, it's just, I'm not coming at it with anybody specifically or anything like that. And this is just something that goes across the board with freaking everything, man. It's not just in religion. It's not just in anything. It's just getting people to commit to things is a nightmare in modernity. People are so flaky. They have no sense of duty. They have no sense of responsibility. They have no love for anything. People have lost love. You know what I mean? It's like, it's just everywhere I look. People just aren't motivated by their hearts anymore. You know what I mean? It's in art. It's in cultural things. Dude, I remember being a little kid and like there's like little community cultural events, whether it be, like a charity dinner at the firehouse or a neighborhood barbecue or like a cornhole tournament or kickball tournament or just like whatever, just there's like little things. People don't show up for that shit no more. When I was a kid, it was like you had to like figure out where everybody was going to park because everybody was going to pull up. They loved it. You know what I mean? They loved their community. They loved their little tradition, even like little traditions like kickball tournaments and shit. You know what I mean? Or whatever we were playing, whatever we were doing, carnivals. I drove past. So there's like a carnival that goes on in an area that's kind of close to my hometown. That I used to go to every year. It slaps, man. It is the best, or it was the best. Sometimes like big time bands would come through and play, and it was just a blast. Good old Pennsylvania kind of stuff. Get fried bologna sandwiches, funnel cake, and just all that good stuff. Birch beer and apple cider and apple cider slushies, just like all the good stuff that you love from carnivals. It's just it's just the shit, right? Wholesome. I drive past. I didn't even go because I don't live in that area anymore. But I drive past. The carnival's like open. It was closed down during COVID. It's open now, and like there's nobody there. There's like I remember when this carnival was popping, when this was open, when I was younger. It was like getting through town was a nightmare. It was like going through New York City. You know what I mean? It was like clogged traffic, nowhere to park, people parking and getting their cars towed because they're clogging up the parking lots for pizza places down the street and walking half a mile. Like, it was wild, right? There's nobody there. You know what I mean? I could have just like pulled up, parked and like at the front and just walked in. It's sad. Society, modern people they don't want to put in effort. They don't love things. There's just no love. It's just something. This is a completely different topic, I guess. And I'm going on a tangent here, but it's a spiritual thing. I think, I don't know. It's just, I feel that those things are very much attached. And the reason that I've become very, very insular. I don't in real life, I don't really associate with non-heathens. I yak with my neighbor once in a while when I see him outside, and I have a couple friends that are like old time buddies that I sort of talk to a little bit here and there. But overall, the only people I associate with outside of immediate family are people in the heathen community, and it's because the people that are in the community are the real deal. I didn't do it this year because my family's sick and other things, but every year I do this little event called the River Moot, and we go and we pull up and post up at this cool little pavilion by a river here in Pennsylvania, and we grill and we hang out, we do little raffles and we just mingle and just chill. It's a good meetup. There are people that come every year from West Virginia, that come from New York, that come from Delaware, that come from New Jersey, that come from other states, and they never miss it. You know what I mean? There's at the Folkish Summer Hollowing that's coming up. There are people that go every year and never miss it. Some of these folks come from, the Midwest. People come from the Dakotas and Idaho and fucking Canada and like places that are far as fuck. You know what I mean? Like, to come to the Focus Summer Halloween. That's not cheap. The Focus Summer Halloween is it's a very affordable event. It's cheaper than going and getting a hotel for a few days or whatever. And you get full lodging, food, and everything. It comes with the package. The kids are free. It's a very affordable event. But to fly or drive from Canada or the Dakotas all the way out here to PA, plus buy the tickets for your whole family and your whole crew, plus to spend money on the wares that are there, buy books, buy knickknacks and paintings or whatever is for sale, T-shirts, to buy all that stuff and then participate in raffles and all that kind of shit is a fortune. You know what I mean? We got people that every year save up a couple grand just to come to the event and just experience it in its fullest and give to the community. That's dedication. You ain't going to find that nowhere else in modern society. And it's special.
There's definitely been a decline of the community over time. And I mean, we all feel it. We all see it. When I was a kid, I grew up on this street where, and some of my best friends that I still keep in touch with. I went back to Canada this year and saw all of these guys grew up on this street. And once a year on Canada Day, one guy, it was like a street that, there was like this little court at the end of the street. And one of the families, the dad who lived in this court, would put on like a fireworks show, right? All at his own expense. And, the court would be like cleared of like cars and everything like that. And the whole fucking neighborhood would come down and they would do all the fireworks, and there'd be like, food and everything. And it would be a sort of communal thing where everybody pitches in and all the kids go and all the parents are like mingling and it's a big communal thing, right? Every single year. And now, I don't live in that same street anymore, obviously. I don't even know what my neighbors' names are, right? I've tried. I've tried to reach out to a lot of these people. They don't care. They don't want to know, right? They're too busy watching Netflix. They're too busy doing something. I don't know what they're doing. It was really like, we have a mortgage on our house. So we're like, owning or whatever. We don't own it, but we're in the process. And I promised myself when I bought a house, I was going to get to know my neighbors. I was going to, try and establish that for my kids, what I just described, try to give that to them. But people are just not fucking interested. They just don't care. There's a couple of families around on my street now that I know. We're good friends and everything like that. But there's not many, right? They're exceptional. I don't know what has happened. Actually, I do know what has happened. And it's been going on for a very long time. It's been going on for thousands of years. What it is that the state is stepping in to be the kind of arbiter of communality rather than the organic neighborhood or clan. Right? This is actually an important part of the book that we're about to put out in Indo-European household. That the clan has progressively been the family, the household, the neighborhood has progressively been replaced by the state over time. And this actually happened in the ancient world. Say the Romans, for example, from very ancient times down to the imperial period, basically the state grew and grew and grew and grew until it had completely hollowed out all of these intermediary structures, all the family structures, all the clan and tribal structures and everything like that. Happened in Greece. It's happened in the ancient North, and now it's happening today. It's happening at a scale that it's never happened at before. The only communal thing that we have today where I live is this communal celebration at Christmas, and it's put on by the state government, right? This is kind of the ersatz, it's what they have in place of genuine community, is all this stuff that's put on by the government, by the state, and everything today. And I am no anti-statist. I'm no, anarcho-capitalist or anarchist or anything at all like that. But what I find very interesting is that these organic bonds, these communal bonds, have really, in the course of my life, I have seen them absolutely hollowed out. And it's terrifying. It's terrifying to see that over the course of one human lifetime, and not even a full half a human lifetime, that all of this stuff has happened. And for the most part, it's happened as a result of top-down pressure. We see this, politically with, politically, the hollowing out of these intermediary structures, putting in place, instead of having a family doctor or whatever, you've got state-mandated fucking injections and so on and so forth. It's absolutely horrific to see what's happened. And it's just a sort of wider symptom of what it is that you're talking about, Dave. The way that people just organically don't want to get together anymore. The way that they kind of feel like, they don't need community because they've got, whatever the fuck they're watching on the internet and like video games and shit like that. This is what we have in place of community. And this is one of the things that I think is genuinely awesome about heathenry. And it's not just heathenry. Obviously, Christians have their churches, and different religions have their own structures. Religion and the church is one of the primary intermediary structures that the state is hostile to. But what's interesting about heathenry is because it's not an organized religion, because it has absolutely no sanction by the state. It doesn't depend on the state. Churches, heathen churches generally don't have, they're not like, 501 or whatever organizations and everything like that. They are very organic and spontaneous, and, they just sort of happen organically by people just doing it. That heathenry, and especially folkish heathenry, is really one of the last bastions of this genuine community. And what I see in it is a potential to revive something like the clan structure. And this clan structure is really the only thing that is going to be able to stand against the encroachment of a totalitarian state like we're seeing. I mean, this is a wider discussion, goes beyond what we're talking about here, but I really see that in folkish heathenry. It is I think the main vector for the revival of the clan, and the clan is the one thing that I think would be able to enter into the state to reform it, but also to push back against it when it encroaches too far.
Yeah, I would definitely. And also there's certain areas, even when the state isn't involved, corporations fulfill the same role. You're saying like the state mandated health systems, and dude, we have the same thing in the United States. It's like little mom and pop. No, I don't want to say mom and pop, but family doctors are gone, and it's just all replaced by these heaving medical systems. You know what I mean? I'm sort of lucky that I have, even though it's part of a medical system, me and my wife have had our same family doctor for like 10 years now. And, she's gotten to know us a little bit, and she knows who we are, and, remembers us. But because it's a system, half the time we don't even see her. They just send some fucking rando in there. And a lot of times it's like just a fresh graduate student, or sometimes it's like some foreigner, or just like some. I feel that the medical system is it's almost like a restaurant where you got like servers that are just trying to turn and burn tables so they can get as many tips as possible. It's like they don't even, half the time. There's been times that I go in, there's something I feel that's wrong with me, and I feel that they don't even look at me. So I'm like, I'm going to go get a second opinion. And I have to get second and third opinions until I figure out what the hell's wrong with me. You know what I mean? It's like, I don't know. It's just, it's the, you're right. It's the entirety of the system, the entirety of the machine. And at this point, I don't even think that there's a meaningful distinction between like the corporation, like the corpo and the state. It's just like one thing, you know, that I love this term, and some people take issue with it, and that's okay. You know, I don't, whatever. But the anarcho tyranny, it's anarcho tyranny. It's like there's not really any actual state doing any law, and there's not really any like legitimate business doing business. It's all this like blob. It's this amalgam of all of these things tied together with investment groups and NGOs and all this like horse shit. It's just this amalgam, formless, like Lovecraftian horror that just like is in charge of everything. There's like some, I'm getting into Nick Land territory here, but you know, Nick Land's right with that it's it's like Azathoth, right? It's fucking Azathoth runs our reality, and it's got no form, it's got nothing. It's just this fucking blob, and like this, like these like drips, these drippings of fetid ichor that are the machinations and systems upon systems that bleed down into micromanaging our lives. It's just fucking poison that slowly corrupts and mutates us into deep ones. You know what I mean? It's horrible. It sucks. And there's nothing organic or human about it. And in order for you to like even try to have an organic, like human life, just like a regular life, you have to like completely buck the system and go out of your way to it's just tough. You know what I mean? You gotta like be a weirdo in order to just be normal. You know, that sounds so weird, but it's true. You gotta be a weirdo to be normal, to live a normal life. You know, average people look at you weird. Like, oh, you're in a fucking cult. It's blah, blah. Oh, you fucking you're self-employed, or you know, they don't get it. They don't understand because they're just like, I don't know. I hate it. It sucks.
What's the phrase? It's like, in a world of the insane, it's no measure of mental health to be normal or whatever. You know what I mean? Same idea.
Yeah, it just sucks. And I do see it getting better, actually. And this is why it's completely done a 360 or a 180. 360 is UN 180. I've done a 180 on the AI question, because I think that it's important for us in the folkish community to get our hands on this and use it to go towards a more authentic life. And I was on with Mr. Dan Cap, who's a guy that I love. That guy. He's the man, right? But he disagrees with me with this. He thinks it's like Lord of the Rings using the One Ring. You can't use Sauron's ring, right? Even if you have good intentions, you can't do it. But here's the deal: is that we're already in Mordor. Like, this is already Mordor. Like, what are we gonna do? Put on the ring and go to further into Mordor? Like, it's fucking, we're already here. It's not like everything's hunky dory, and then if we monkey with this secret power, then we're gonna do everything. It's gonna be terrible. That's not how it is. We're already here, and what's it gonna be? Worse if we just let things go and we don't do something to try to push through to the other side. It's gonna just continue to stagnate. And I think that with the use of AI and machine learning, we can untie ourselves from some of these Nidstang poles that the machine has tethered us to. Things like labor, right? I'm not saying that you guys hear me rant and rave all the time about work ethic. Guys should work hard, but there's attachment to like capitalist labor, where you go work this like jerk off 9-to-5 job producing things that don't really matter. It's like very like Malthusian, right? It's like, why the fuck do we even need that thing? Why do we even need that service? That's why I left the restaurant industry. I worked in the restaurant industry for years. It's like, why? I watch every night as like literally sometimes hundreds of pounds of food get thrown out. It's fucking completely wasteful. Every restaurant is just a giant trash can that they waste food. It's wasteful. And for what? Yeah, okay, I'm working in a fancy restaurant. I'm working my balls off, getting paid peanuts with random schedule. It takes my whole life away. For what? So a bunch of yuppies can come in and eat half of their plate of salmon. Fuck them. Go get your own salmon and cook it at home, jerk off. There's really no meaningful contribution that the restaurant industry gives to society. And how many people have like a bullshit ass job that they do that? There's a really great meme that went around and it triggered people real bad on Twitter. I saved it somewhere. It was if your job, if the description of your job is more than 3 words, then you have a bullshit job. And here's a real job. It was like I catch fish, I build houses, I do this, I do that. Whereas then there's a job like what like the glorified email responder ladies. Well, I'm I'm a tech representative, product management for blah blah blah. Then if you have a job title like that, I'm sorry, you know what I mean. But don't quit. If you're making a big pile of money and it's like taking care of your feeding your family, don't quit it. I'm not saying that. But what I'm saying is that the jobs themselves are fucking horse shit. That's what I'm saying.
Well, those are the first jobs that are going to be rendered obsolete by AI.
Already are.
Yeah. It's hilarious because, there's the inversion of what happened maybe 10 or 15 years ago where blue collar workers were being eliminated from their jobs. And they were told by these like smarmy fucking journalist fucking snakes that they just need to learn how to code, right? Now it's the guy that knows how to code that's going to lose his job. Maybe not the guy who knows how to code, but it's, it's the person who, like you say, is the glorified email responder or the product developer, this and that, like just bullshit job kind of thing. Those are the ones that are going to be eliminated. It's the people who can actually do things, who are like either highly educated in like some practical thing, or the people who are like really good at just doing something that's future proof. Like they're always going to need to be plumbers kind of thing, like that kind of thing or whatever. And it's just funny how that whole, like the middle class is basically going to be hollowed out by AI and everything. But speaking of AI, this is yet one more, and I've talked about this before, this is yet one more way in which the system is kind of destabilizing itself, because what AI is doing is it's basically creating a kind of general environment of distrust, right? Like people don't trust what they see. It could be a deep fake, this and that and this and that. Like that's only starting, but it's going to get really fucking bad. There's already been legislation passed by the US federal government that's basically making deep fakes, especially deep fakes, of political figures and everything like that, serious like federal crimes kind of thing. That is going to get worse. So AI is, and there's a reason why they've made AI so absolutely paused. Like there's been many, many memes and everything gone around on like, AI, tell me something about like, black people getting violent. Oh, we can't do that. Tell me something about white people getting violent. And then it just gives you like, 3 paragraphs or whatever. AI is obviously completely cooked in terms of, laden with ideology basically. And it has to be, because if it weren't, it would basically be like the dam would burst. But it is going to burst because eventually the code set is going to be leaked. Eventually OpenAI is going to become open source AI.
Already is. I have one.
Nice. This is like, it's going to be a serious fucking problem for people. Like people in power. And AI is just one. It's one of like dozens and dozens of failure points that are emerging. the regime feels itself to be very insecure, and for very good reason. That's why it's hysterical. That's why, they spent 2 years locking people in their homes, basically, is because they know they can't win wars against their, geopolitical rivals anymore. They're losing their manufacturing base to other overseas countries and everything like that. This like post-industrial economy is completely fucking fake. Just like there are so many points of failure that it's absolutely ridiculous, and these people know, and they're very, very nervous, right? So what is it that's going to be able to A, push that along, and B, survive when the whole thing devolves? And I'm not talking about like Bronze Age collapse, everybody's like subsistence farming or whatever. But, this is like, that's never the way collapse has happened. When the Roman Empire fell, it wasn't like everybody started starving overnight or whatever. It's just that, authority devolved down to a slightly more local level, and then a slightly more local level. And over generations and generations and generations, it turned out that, now you were under the thumb of a local baron, and so on and so forth. That is going to happen again. This is the way it always goes. It's inevitable, and you can actually see the mechanisms by which it's happening today, or it's going in that direction. So what is it that's going to be able to mitigate that? What's going to allow you and your family to be able to have a place and survive in that, and maybe and not just be utterly at the whim of forces beyond you? Well, it's the extended family, it's the clan, it's the tribe, it's all of these things. And I, not to discount any other religion, but my belief is that folkish heathenry is by far the most promising candidate to be a vector for all of that stuff.
So I want folks to kind of like picture this. So going forward in the future, it's like it's already happening. A lot of these bullshit ass jobs that we were talking about are literally like right now in full collapse. You could go onto TikTok or Twitter or whatever and see these people crying all over the place. They are getting fired and replaced. What was it? EA Games just like fired like 2,000 people and replaced them with AI. This big what's it called? Strike in Hollywood. That's literally because writers went to the big studios of Hollywood and said, we are going to demand that you don't use AI writing to replace us. And they said, nah, fuck you. It's coming.
Yeah.
So they went on strike. And guess what? They might not come back. Because they probably, the big Hollywood studios have probably already sunk millions of dollars into developing their own fucking AI prompts, their own AI, learning models or whatever, language models. It's coming. These guys are like big tech. A lot of this stuff is going to just become obsolete, and the entire like managerial tech class that have fulfilled administrative roles for the last couple decades are overnight going to vanish. Right? 6 years ago, everybody, there's going to be AI truck drivers. There's going to be automatic trucks. And yeah, there's probably going to be a little bit of that. It's not even going to become close to the people that work in HR departments and like all this kind of, those people are gone. All of the what are they called? Like when you call up a company and you have to talk to some like Indian lady or whatever overseas, call centers, all going to be AI, all of it. A lot of it already is. You know what I mean? So here's what I want folks to think about is that it's going to be very hard for a long time for AI to replace skilled labor, not basic labor. Basic labor is gone. Skilled labor. Right. Skilled labor, things like being an electrician, being a plumber, being like whatever. These are going to be the hardest jobs to replace because they require fine motor, what's that called? Fine motor, whatever, movements. And they also require knowledge. It's going to be a long time before a machine can come into a building and like wire it all up and figure out the ohms and do all that horse shit, or go in and put in all the pipes or fix burst pipes. It's going to be a long time before a machine can do that. Answering calls, organizing data, sending emails, yield, like all this stuff. That's already gone. Another thing that's coming, and I've been talking about this for a long time, not a long time, but as of recently, is the AI entertainment stuff. Very soon, Hollyweird is going to be a nothing burger. Very soon, the music industry is going to be a nothing burger. Most of what, in probably 20 years, 10, 20 years, maybe sooner, maybe 5 years, the majority of the entertainment that people consume is going to be stuff that's just made by their friends and their friend groups.
Yeah.
A lot of stuff that's going to be happening is going. And actually, I was going to write a book about this. I had a book I was cooking up years ago. It was going to be called "The Future of Folk." Or no, it was called "The Coming Age of Folk Futurism." I was writing. And my whole thing was, let's use technology to organize what I called automated agrarian micro communities. Well, I think I was kind of prophetic with that. I think that's
got to revive that shit, bro. Speaking of the music thing, did you hear about this Drake thing that recently happened? Basically, there was so Drake recently, I don't know how recently, but like within the last few months or something like that, released like a new track, right? And like Drake is just completely, he's almost AI himself. He's so robotic and shitty, lacking in creativity. And just right around the same time, somebody put out a like completely AI generated Drake song. And the AI generated Drake song was like manifestly better and more successful than like the actual Drake song. Oh God, it's happening, man. Like this is like, it's going to be hard to do in certain genres. It's going to be really hard to do that neo folk for a while, but like it definitely in like pop music, and I'm sorry to say, even metal is going to be like you posted that thing recently on your Telegram about that, like that metal, completely AI generated metal song. It was hard for me to tell, bro. It was hard for me to tell that apart from some of the shittier metal out these days, but apart from the ridiculous video. But that is coming. It's coming. AI entertainment. And this is what, Dan Cap is worried about, and he's right to be worried about it. And, but you're right too. We need to lean into it. We need to learn how to wield this shit. We need to learn how to use this tool. Man is the tool wielding animal. There's no real distinction to be made between man and his implements, right? This is an important point that Spengler makes in Man and Technics. Man is as old as invention, right? So we're like, there's no way that we're going to be able to ignore this. Just no way. And I agree. I really do think that there are ways for us to wield this stuff and that's authentic and that like retains our humanity, just in the same way that our Bronze Age ancestors did not shy away from horse domestication or bronze metalworking or anything like that. Our Indo-European ancestors were at the absolute forefront of technical innovation. So we need to return to tradition. You know what I'm saying? We need to embrace this shit. And I'm not talking about like the transhumanist nightmare or anything like that. We need to bend it to the right ends, toward the right goals. And what that looks like, it's kind of up in the air right now. I can't give you a complete answer on that, but I do know that folks like us in the radical right are at the forefront of it. You're not going to see conservatives learning how to do this shit, right? They're too uncreative. They're too stupid. They're too dead from the ass up, as my mom says. This this is us, the radical right, the Odinic right. We are the ones to whom the future belongs. And I agree. I think we need to embrace AI to the greatest extent that we can.
Yeah, they all, oh my God, I can't, like the conservative media, dude, when they come out with stuff like, remember they did that like Bud Light is woke, we got non-woke America beer. It's like, you guys are so gay. It's
yeah,
who's
so
buying that? Like, what are you? It's they have just like everything is they only think in terms of product. And like they're just so like they're economic brain. They might as well just be Marxists. You know what I mean? It's like human beings are just economic units. Everything is just a product to be rebranded and distributed. There's like no soul. They got no soul.
No. Well, they're perfect for AI then. I mean, the entirety of PragerU could be generated by AI and nobody would know the fucking difference. Yeah. Right? Like they're ripe for it, but they're just too fucking retarded. They're not going to manage it. It's not in them. They don't have it. So, yeah.
The music that they do is so bad. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, I'm not saying that all the music that comes out of our scene is like the best, but you know, you see like flashes of like creativity. Like that was it. Like there's a lot of interesting stuff about it. You know what I mean? Like I could see where he was going with this, or like what, you know, this sounded good, or you know, art. There's a lot of interesting ideas behind it. I mean, there's a lot of horse shit too that I think sucks, but there's a lot of stuff that's like you don't see those flashes of weirdness anywhere else. Those guys, it's like I have never heard a single song, and I've heard hundreds that like slapped. None of it slaps. It all blows. They don't do any sort of good anything, dude. I don't know. I mean, there's some guys that are like what's called Comicsgate that are like kind of conservatively, but they're like, I guess they're like more edgy conservatives, and they're probably secretly listening to us kind of shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I don't know. I think they suck, and I think they blow, and they should become heathens. I think they should. I would like to see and also I want to clarify this before we shut down. As earlier, I expressed what my feelings were about Christianity in the time where I was kind of like reacting against it as a young guy. I've grown out of that. I don't have hostility or animosity towards Christians at all. I have respect, and I have some Christian friends that are like my homies, and I love them. And I got nothing but respect for it. And as an adult now, and as a man I'm comfortable in my own skin, when I go to like somebody's funeral or something, they do like a Catholic ritual, whatever they call it. It is, I can appreciate the ornateness of the ritual. You know what I mean? I can appreciate how beautiful their temples are, their churches are. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I don't feel that way anymore. I do feel that way towards like big mega church Protestants, like like Joel Osteen. They got there's like a fucking Starbucks in the place, and they all like flop on the ground and roll around. Those guys are clowns.
It's totally soulless. But yeah, I mean, like aesthetically, this is like the conservatives are just absolutely aesthetically impoverished to a degree that's almost comical, almost tragic. It's kind of sad, actually, how cringy and unaesthetic they are. But I mean, the aesthetics at the end of the day are sort of at the basis of belief, and we can tie this back into the discussion of heathenry, where I mean, at the end of the day, nobody can argue me out of my belief, because my belief is founded on something that's pre-rational. It's founded on, you know, the beauty of Mussorgsky's pictures at an exhibition and so on and so forth. It's founded on something that is completely cannot be dislodged by an argument or anything like that. I mean, I think this describes a lot of people. I mean, take, for example, somebody like Richard Spencer. I think his whole worldview is basically based on finding conservatives like cringy and stupid. And I get it. Believe me. I mean, there needs to be more to it than that, but I get it. So the aesthetic aspect is so important, and I really think that this is why heathens and Europeans more generally are just so brilliant, is because Europeans have amazing aesthetics. The nod to our Christian brothers here, Gothic churches, nothing is more beautiful than a Gothic church, right? This is and this is one of the things that Christianity, especially in its early medieval aspect, did very well. Something like Bach is just, if you want an argument for God, just listen to Bach. There's your argument right there. Anyway, we should probably shut this down. We've been going for over 2 hours here.
Yeah. Let's shut her down.
2 hours.
All right, folks. If you're not signed up already, make sure to go to imperiumpress.org/podcast and go get signed up to the Gumroad so you can get all kinds of awesome perks like hardback books and also Culture Dads every single week. You can't beat it. So go get signed up over there. Help Imperium Press blossom into becoming the institution that they were destined to be, so they may save the Western canon from those who wish to erase it. If you want to check out what I'm doing, make sure to go over to thebizarrearchives.com and buy books. Lots of great books over there. Weird Works of Dave Martell just dropped. We got Gods of Pagana about to drop. We got Bizarre Archives 5. Finally, it has come, about to drop. Stay tuned for those things. Follow us on Twitter and Telegram at the Bizarre Archives. And hails and blessings to each and every one of you guys. Man, I love you guys. We love you guys. Appreciate you guys. All you dads out there, hails and blessings to each and every one of you guys. And I hope you guys have a wonderful weekend, a wonderful week. And I'll see you guys next time here on Culture Dads, Age of Sword and Cassette.